Okay, so I'd like to introduce Hogne Kirkebo. Hogne and I have known each other for 3.5 years. Known of him for a bit longer than that. And again, someone who has massively shifted, especially in the last 18 months or so. I've asked Hogne to come and just share his story with us. And it's quite a remarkable one of his own transformation. So I'm really glad that we were able to do this. So without further ado, Hogne.
Thank you. So I'm going to share with you guys, I'm going to start with my childhood and try to go through the major experiences that I've had that it's kind of been almost determining how I become today. So the greatest pains and happiness of my life. When I was growing up, I was an energetic little guy. I was very creative and always loved having fun and playing, all that kind of stuff. And at school, I was always the one sitting and daydreaming and watching out the window, and always been that kind of guy, always up in my head, dreaming and thinking. The thing that kind of saved me through school was my intellect. Like some of you, a lot of you guys here are very similar to me, strong intellects, and I kind of I've been surfing on my intellect all my life. At school, I never did any homework. I procrastinated like a champion. Always did a thing at the day before you have to hand in the assignment. That was kind of my way in life, doing everything at the last notice. I remember also when I was growing up, especially at school, that being different, I didn't feel really that connected to people. I had a lot of friends. I was popular with the girls and a lot of people wanted to be with me, but I still felt a bit lonely. I didn't feel that deep connection with people. And something that kind of stuck in me for a while was that I thought he was one of my best friends, but I didn't kind of see it there. But every time I asked if he wanted to come visit me, he never had the time, or he had something he had to do, but I could come visit him. And he was just sitting playing on his computer, for example. And that was the depth of a lot of the friendships I had at the time. When I started getting to high school, I had a very interesting way of how my life developed. Who here can picture me with black hair and piercings? So I had actually a couple of 1 or 2 years. I was kind of in the goth emo style. I think it's kind of was that I wanted to stand out and be different, not be that conformity in one of the group. I wanted to be me. So that was kind of the way that I started acting out. And up until then, I was good with women. I remember the first party that me and my sister arranged. She's 3 years older than me, and I think I made out with 16 girls that night. That was I was like a horny dog. I had my inhibitions at the time they weren't that high. But that started changing after that when I started getting into more relationships, and the thinking was coming. And that's when, I think it was in 2006, that when I first had my kind of really big long-term relationship. I remember before I actually even met her, I saw a woman across the yard outside one of the malls. And it was like I was hit by lightning. I didn't know what, but there was something with that girl, and I didn't even see her face. And a couple of weeks later, I was sitting in my friend's car outside an apartment they were renting, and that girl walked past again. And still, once again, I felt that kind of electric shock. I just knew that I wanted her. And so that ended up with a relationship that lasted for 3 years. And she was exactly the kind of woman that I liked when it comes to the physical, and she had great personality. She was really great, and I really, really had a lot of love for her. And I remember she was trying to kind of open me up to new things, the things that are quite natural to me now. I was completely resistant and completely blocked after all those things, like alternative care and all this side stuff. I was completely blocked. I was so much up here. And as the time progressed, I was getting more and more confused about my direction in life, who I was, and where I was heading. And that was starting to affect my relationship to her, or I thought it did. And I remember the day we broke up, we were outside her house. We were sitting on a trampoline. And I had this idea in my mind that I couldn't relate to a girlfriend when I couldn't even relate to myself. That I needed to figure out where I was going or what I wanted to do. So what pretty much I did, I broke my own heart thinking that I needed something out there, figure out something before I could be with someone. And that's just bizarre. And that was kind of the misunderstanding I had at the time. I was so confused. I can say that most of my life I've been a confused guy. But that was kind of the first time I really started realizing how confused I really was. I was starting to see that most of the people were acting on the expectations of others, and I didn't want that for myself. I didn't feel that I was fitting into the normal patterns. And all my friends were starting to rush towards their career and everything, but I had so much stuff I wanted to do, so many things I wanted to explore. And when we broke up, I thought I also needed to understand women more. That I didn't understand women, or I didn't know how to relate to them. And that was kind of my introduction to personal development. This is where I started, in about 2009. And that was the time I read the game, as some of you have as well. And after I read that, I signed up for a boot camp in Bergen, a weekend boot camp with Jakob Löfstad. I remember the second guy's name, but it's not important. There was all these techniques and all the things you need to do. But the part about going over to women, I didn't have any problems with that. That was quite fun. I usually I pretty much always come off as a trusting guy. I have an honest face, so I really rarely give those bad vibes, and that has pretty much helped me when it comes to interacting with women, that I seem like a decent guy. But I didn't really feel connected to that stuff. It didn't really feel authentic to me. And so I kind of put that on the back burner for a while. And at the time also started doing singing. That's where things started going in another direction again for me. About a year later, in 2010, I applied for the first year of music teacher education just north of where I grew up. And I remember the first day of school, I was outside the main building, and I had this feeling that something was about to happen. And I turned around, I saw the woman that that became my next girlfriend. When I just saw her the first time, I just knew that I loved her already. I didn't know who she was or what her name was, but at that moment she was the beautiful woman I had ever seen, and I was lost. I was lost in her from the first moment I saw her. The funny thing that happened next was that she was my guide for the introduction to getting accustomed to the school and the area and everything. And this is kind of where things really started to come up for me, the good and bad. I think meeting her, she has been my greatest teacher in my life. Not directly, but what we shared have given me so many experiences that led to so many of my perspectives. And it's quite funny. I remember before we were kind of a couple, we went to a city just further north with a friend of hers. And she put on this beautiful nightgown and the sexy kind. And I was supposed to sleep in a second bed. And I remember I just fell asleep. I didn't even notice that she had dressed up for me, and it was kind of the level of awareness I had at the time. I wasn't really that aware at the time. And when things started developing, I love this woman that much that I kind of lost myself, that I started becoming insecure, and it stopped. All these insecurities came up. All this anger. I remember several times she was afraid of me because I had a short temper, and we had heated arguments, and I was trying to do the normal intellectual solve things instead of letting things pass. I was so up here that I didn't understand what was happening with myself, and I was thinking that it was her. It's quite a big misunderstanding that I had at the time. And when it came to the sex, it was just like with a relationship. It's kind of heaven and hell. And I was comparing myself a lot with the sex I had before. We were communicating so bad that our sex didn't really function. But I was so up in my head that I was so tense, I wasn't relaxed. And I remember something that was, I think at the time, was one of the most shameful experiences of my life, that we were having sex now, and I came too soon, and she got really angry. Really angry. And I kind of, at the time, felt like my manhood just died, that I wasn't able to fuck the woman I loved properly, that I didn't feel like a man with her. Felt like a boy almost that didn't had what it takes. We were having more and more arguments, and just so many misunderstandings. And after my first year of music school, I remember my family and my ex-girlfriend was kind of shooing me into a more secure direction. Like, you need a career that you can make money on, and so I kind of went with that at the time, and I started on something called innovation and entrepreneuring. At the time, I went to Morten Hockey Summit in Oslo. That's where I first time I saw Sam Perrion speaking, and when he said that that we are more controlled by the expectations of others instead of the expectations we have to ourselves. That shifted something for me. So I quit school. I moved to Oslo. I moved into a personal development collective, or what you call it, with 3 other guys. And she was moving abroad to do an internship. So that kind of made sense at the time. It's okay, I thought. And this is when I started exploring NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and also this is where I started exploring the message that's behind our Samarada. And still at this time I was completely up in my head. I was so confused and I have to admit I was quite a mess at the time. It's quite funny to look back at this, to think back on this time actually. Seems like it's a different universe, a different person. It doesn't feel like me at all. So I started with NLP and it was fun. I was really good at it, and I had some great effects with NLP and removing phobias. And I remember even one guy, I was living with him there, and I used NLP to cure his approach anxiety with women. But then he kind of discovered that his approach anxiety was what made him feel alive when approaching women. So he kind of regretted the entire thing. So it's quite funny how things work out. A bit after that, I was getting even more confused about our relationship in my direction. I think it's one of the most confusing moments of my life, that period. It's almost like you're so confused. It's like your body is shaking on the inside. You don't know where to go. You don't know what to do with yourself. And I remember asking for advice with someone that I wouldn't ask for advice now. And the advice made a lot of logical sense. It made so much sense, but from that perspective, and I was so confused that I didn't really see that it wasn't right for me. And when I shared those advice with her, she was really hurt. She didn't feel good enough, or that I really wanted her. When she came to visit me a couple of weeks later, we had this heated argument where I wanted her to admit that she would be willing to work on herself as well, that she would be willing to change. And she wanted me to say that I would wait for her. And I said that I can't wait for you unless you say to me that you're willing to work on yourself. So, a few minutes later, she left. And that was the end of that relationship. And I just remember she was standing a meter from me, and I was crying, but she was still holding her mask. She was still wearing that mask. And at the time it felt like my heart was walking out the door. That my heart was with her. And that is the moment where I hit my rock bottom in my life. I remember standing in the room, in the apartment. I was looking out the window, and I was afraid of my own life. I almost walked down to the emergency room saying that I was actually afraid of my own life. I was at the absolute bottom of my life. it felt like everything I was just died. Whatever this name is, it didn't exist anymore. Something just died in that moment. And all because of misunderstandings. Things started to clear up. This is when my personal development journey started into a spiritual journey instead. This is when I wanted to seek out and find all the insecurities, my shames, and all that I thought I needed to change. I thought I needed to change. That I needed to learn all this stuff. And this was when Hogne started looking for Hogne. I started listening to Eckhart Tolle, and I was starting to exploring into the world of Tantra and yoga and that kind of the more esoteric parts of life. And this was the first time that I was starting to connect to my own emotions, my feelings. So starting going from that completely confused, intellectual, dry humored guy to someone that's more in touch with himself. I've always been good with when it comes to sex, and it's kind of been a bit natural for me. Not that every time has been good, far from it, but it kind of have come natural to me. But it wasn't until I started letting go of the techniques, and I came to women, sexuality, and everything. When I started letting go of the techniques, that things really started to change. When it came to sex, instead of thinking that you need to stimulate X spot for Y seconds to get set results, it was more about slowing down and really feeling the other person. And that was the moment I, for the first time, really had mind-blowing sex. Really, really good sex. That lasted for hours. We were just having sex, and that really changed my life in a big way. Coming from the place where it was one of the most shameful and painful areas of my life, where I didn't feel I was adding up, I wasn't good enough, to realizing what I was actually capable of. And at the same time, I was doing more of the Asha Murada, and you approach a lot of women and you talk to them, and that didn't feel natural for me either. I was looking for that connection. I didn't understand that at the time, but I've always been looking for those deep connections. And when I was getting further in that was the time when I met Ankush for the first time as well. That I remember we were coming to Oslo to do an event, and we invited him to stay in our apartment. I was quite a different guy at the time. I was very shy, had a lot of insecurities. As Ankush can testify to as well. With all this, with the last relationship I had, I had so many regrets, so many things that I felt I should have done better. When you in hindsight realize the silliness of the mistakes you made and the love you felt for that person, that it's just so stupid. It was so unnecessary. It took a lot of time for me to get over that, to stop beating up myself. I was doing a lot of that. And it was when Anchorage said to me that everything you've done so innocently. I started crying because I realized on a deeper level that how much I've been beating myself up. That I've had so much expectations to myself. All the things I should have done and I shouldn't have done. And that's also when I started exploring the 3 principles. First, I just had so many troubles kind of bending my mind around it, trying to understand it and make sense of it. And that's not easy. It's not something you can bend your mind about. It's not something you do with your intellect. And it's only lately, the last 18 months, that I'm really starting to see more and more how I've been always looking out there for something. I've been looking out there for what's in here. I've been looking for all these tools, these things I need to have to do this and that. But in the end, everything is about connecting to yourself and to get an experience of what you're actually capable of. Last year I was doing my tantric massage therapist training. And on the last night we were doing a ritual. So all the guys were sitting naked on a pillow, pointing outwards. And I was putting on some music, and then after a while the girls came in with flower crowns, and they were completely naked as well. Before they came in, I was so nervous. My stomach was churning. I was almost shitting myself. It's quite funny. I was so nervous, so excited. When they came in, something shifted for me dramatically. So when the women came walking in, they stopped in front of me, one by one. And they were doing these dancing moves completely naked. And imagine standing in front of another person completely naked, so vulnerable, and you're actually dancing for them. And that is for the first time that I saw true beauty. That I saw past the physical. And I was completely mind blown. I was actually high. I felt like I was having a full body orgasm, just sitting there and watching one woman by woman dancing in front of me. It's like you're almost crying because it's so beautiful. And there's nothing else. And that's really for the first time that I deeply connected with another woman. There was no thoughts, there were no ideas, there were no judgments about her body. It was just a moment where two people are deeply connected and you're really connecting from that place. It's a moment I'm going to remember for the rest of my life. Until you see that true beauty beyond what you think, you really have no idea what beauty really is. It melts everything else away. Everything. Nothing else matters. Time stops. Everything stops. It's just two souls. I'm seeing more and more how the three principles is behind everything that I've done the last 2 years. What I've done, what I've experienced wouldn't have been the same without my understanding of the three principles. And now we're exploring Tantra, Taoism, even quantum physics, and so many other things. And the three principles have connected the dots for me in so many ways. And I keep having these insights. Sometimes it's just like an emotional spike that comes out. You'll suddenly have tears in your eyes. And like Wednesday, I was sitting at the airport in Amsterdam, and I had this insight where I deeply realized that I've been afraid of being I've been close to women at the deepest level. I've been afraid to connect with women on that level again since my last relationship. And that was a very emotional insight for me that still it was hanging on. And I still connected to that feeling that despite I don't even know her anymore. But I still have a lot of love for her and appreciation. And love is not something you put in a bottle. It's not limited, it's not a quantity. But it's something you always have with you. It doesn't have to be active. But in my case, I just feel a deep appreciation and deep love for her, despite she's not in my life. And when you're going through all these things, I can't think of anything better to help you than have a deeper understanding of the three principles. It really helps you see past your own judgments, your own guilts, your own resentment, and to really understand where love is really coming from. And it's coming from you, not the other person. And just the last couple of days, and since my quite interesting experience on Wednesday, when I got here, I just deeply see that everything is connected on a red line. Every insight you have has a purpose. Might not be big, but everything has a red line. There's a purpose behind everything. So for me, I just wanted to finish with that. Life gets more beautiful by the day. The moments I have where I'm completely in the basement, they are shorter and fewer. And for example, Anchorage have seen me in both kind of states. And I have a lot of gratitude towards him for helping me see through a lot of this stuff as well. And doing workshops like this has really helped me. And that's why I don't really want to do this kind of workshops that it's going to solve all your problems with one workshop. That's why I'm here for the fourth time, because I want to go deeper with myself and guys like you. We have a great space, we have a great connection. It's a safe space to share. So, my friends, life is beautiful. Yeah. Life is magnificent. Questions?
What has it done, understanding the three principles, for your work?
Quite a lot. It has helped me maintain the balance between being empathic and disconnected at the same time. You can't be too attached, but you also have to be empathetic. You have to be understanding and not take it with you when the person moves on or dies. because that's just how life is. So it's about having the understanding that that's just how it is. If a person has cancer, there's nothing I can do about it. If a person has a cardiac arrest in the ambulance, I know what to do. I have my equipment and my understandings, and I can do my best. But if that doesn't work, that's okay too. That's how life is. Not everyone is meant to be saved. For some, that's the time they're supposed to cross over. And I can only do my best to make sure that it's not happening while they're with me. I can only do my best to protect them or help them according to my abilities and skills. And understanding 3 principles has helped me take away a lot of the pressure, the stress, and it makes me a much more calm person at work. I'm not rushing around. I'm quite relaxed at work, even when it's hectic. I'm usually the least stressed guy. I'm one of the least experienced, but I'm usually one of the most relaxed ones. So it helps a lot. Yeah.
Given the amount of experiences that you went through in the last 6 years, how do you combine that with life, career that you are currently holding? Or did you manage to do all of that, the dragon, the tantra, the everything in parallel or before?
In parallel.
I want to be in Norway.
One thing that I'm actually a bit proud of is that my ability to always get a job or always have ability to get money. I'm never waiting or procrastinating when it comes to getting a job or income. I have no problems with that at all. And I've been good at getting jobs that supports what I'm doing. When I lived in Oslo, I worked as a security guard for Securitas, and I was working 10-hour shifts. So when I was off, I had 1 week free. At my job now, I work 2 days on, then I have usually 1 week off. So I've been going for the careers and opportunities that allows me to focus on myself. So I choose a job that supports what I want to do: personal development, traveling, and focusing on myself. And that's kind of the thing about having a job. You want something that supports you in who you are. And working 8 to 4 is not something that I want. I want to have freedom. I want to travel. If I want to run naked in the forest and fart, I can do that. Or if I want to go to some country to learn something, I want to do that. I love learning. I love exploring. And being stuck in a routine is not for me. That does not help me help others much, as with my talents and abilities. Anyone else? Questions? Or more questions?
What is the career path you're really looking to go down now? Where you've got to as well?
I had an insight on Thursday, yeah. But I've been so confused about career for so many years. Probably 15 years I've been so confused. And I realized that when it comes to personal development, we always seek to deepen our understanding. It's kind of natural, but I didn't see that about education and career. That I simply want to deepen my understanding in a way that helps me help others through the gifts and talents I have. So I have a lot of options I'm looking at. So what happens, I don't know yet. I don't know in July. So, but I'm not going to the North Pole or anything crazy like that.
You look like you're working on the set.
No. Not yet. Not yet. Any more?
Thank you, Hogne.
Yeah. Any more questions? No. Also have a.
Can I stop recording?
Yeah.